Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here, welcome back to the railway and welcome back to another review. Today I'm going to be doing something that I haven't done in quite a long time, and that is a Heljan diesel. In real life, this locomotive was an unreliable nightmare, so fingers crossed that Heljan's rendition of it won't go the same way. The locomotive is this. It is the Heljan Class 17, and I've looked at the photos and such of this class already, and I must say I am a fan of these. I just love the shape, I love the cabs in the middle. Already I am a fan of the Class 17, and so when I found these available for a reasonable price, I could not resist picking one up. So the RRP is £139.95, which doesn't seem too bad. I mean, I have no idea what the model's like, but on face value that seems okay, and I think I managed to pick this up for about £105, which seems very, very reasonable for a diesel of this size. And of course, if I can get an affiliate link to Hattons, I will include one down in the description so that you can check these out. However, like I say, zero experience of this model for me so far. I know nothing about them, so this really will be a complete surprise for me. Let me get this out, let's take a look at it together and figure out whether this is any good. So I know when I mention Heljan, there is sometimes a big groan, and I get it, you know, that's reasonable. I have had a lot of really bad experiences with Heljan on this channel. A lot of their models have been very unreasonably poor, in my opinion. However, there are quite a few Heljan diesels that I'm aware of that are supposed to be good. I've looked at quite a few of them myself, and I've heard good things about them to boot, so there's definitely no reason to expect this model to be inadequate in any way. However, obviously we will just have to let time tell and see for ourselves. Let me show you the end of the box. So this is 1723 BR Blue D8534 with full yellow ends. Not going to tell us the class then? Are we going to be left guessing what this is? That's a bit strange, isn't it? Just, you know, put the class on the box somewhere, please, so that we actually know what we're buying. Thankfully, the retailers were on the ball and they did label this up as a Class 17 and not just BR Blue D8534, whatever that means. But yeah, this is a Class 17. And as always, there's very little to see on the box, which means I will get started and figure out how we actually get this thing out. I think it just opens at this end, or is it a sleeve? Yeah, it just opens at the end. Okay. All right, and out comes the box, and here's our first sort of look at the locomotive. And yeah, you can see the centre cab there is the defining feature of this class, isn't it, really? I don't know, I really like that. I can say that I'm a huge fan of centre cabs. I was a big fan of it on the Janus shunter from Oxford Rail, and this isn't even out of the box yet, but already I can tell that I'm really going to like this, at least from a sort of general visual perspective. Okay, come on, let's pull this out and take a look. So how's it feeling? Yeah, the weight seems about what you'd expect for a loco of this size. Of course, I will weigh it later on. And then I've got the manual here, I assume. So it says Class 17, so it's thank you for the purchase. I can see already that this does just have a 3-pole motor. It says that it will meet most modelers' demands. I'll have to say that is not me. When you spend this kind of money on a locomotive, I expect a 5-pole motor because the performance usually is better. However, some 3-pole motors do offer great performance, so we will just have to wait and see. Okay, so what is this? We've got some diagrams. Okay, so this must be for body removal and DCC fitting. It shows about removing the cab. So it's this annoying situation again where the body doesn't come off in one piece. It looks like the cab comes off and then the rest of the body comes off maybe. Why? It's such a strange design. I think it was the 07 that had a similar design to that. Nightmare to get the body off. Yeah, they've definitely got some strange design philosophies, haven't they? I've never quite understood that. And of course, if you want a little bit of history on the Class 17, there's a nice section about it just here. So as always, feel free to pause and read that if you'd like to. But yeah, I love this thing. And in the BR Blue with the yellow ends, it's looking really cool already, isn't it? Anyway, what have we got? It looks like there's some extras in here, which I didn't necessarily realise I was getting. So this is a nice bonus. So in there are the couplings, quite obviously. Those are not pre-fitted to the model then, so I will have to, well, I'll probably just put some of my own in then, because I don't like Heljan couplings anyway. And then you've got what look like some little ploughs for the front, little yellow ploughs. Do they go in the NEM pocket, maybe? They are really cool though. I love when models come with snowplows. It just gives you another different scenario that you can reenact with your loco. So I think that is epic. Come on then, I'm really, really interested to see what this one is like. I've never had one of these before. Let's do this real carefully. All right, so the packaging looks pretty good, I must say. It's all nicely wrapped in plastic. The plastic is sort of formed to the body of the loco as well, which is interesting. All right, well, ugh. Has somebody like drooled on this or something? Yeah, I'm going to wipe that. Hang on. Come here, what have you been doing? I feel like it's mother taking out a grotty tissue and dabbing at it. But there we go. Yeah, that must have just been some condensation or some lubricant or something. No big deal. Okay. Do you know what? Yeah, this isn't actually a very heavy loco at all. Just feeling it, it is all plastic, so the sort of sole bar, running plate, whatever you want to call it, that is clearly plastic. The underside here, the underside detail, that's all plastic. Feels like the bogies are plastic as well. It's not like criminally light or anything, so I'm guessing there must be a heavy die-cast chassis on the inside. We'll find out about that later on. But yeah, it doesn't feel like a dreadfully heavy loco for its size, and usually that's not the case with Heljan. Say what you like about them, but usually their models are pretty heavy. However, ranting about the weight aside, this thing actually does look great, doesn't it? The level of detail is definitely there. We'll take a closer look at the quality and see how well this has been put together. That should be interesting. But at first glance, I mean, the finish is quite nice, isn't it? It's not an overly plasticky finish. It's not gloss or anything. It's just that nice satin that just works well, I think anyway, on 00 gauge models. And I've got it in my hand and I'm still saying that I'm a fan of the Class 17. So I think that's a pretty good sign. I'm going to show you this up close then, but first of all, here's a little bit of history on the Class. And I'll warn you, they were pretty disappointing in real life. Also known as the Clayton Type 1, the BR Class 17 was a class of 117 Bobo diesel locomotives produced between 1962 and 1965. Other Type 1 diesels produced by the BR up until that time had had single cabs at one end, but it was decided that a centre cab was to be used experimentally speaking on the Class 17, the idea being that this would improve the convenience and the visibility for travel in both directions. This necessitated the use of two fairly small 6-cylinder Paxman engines, as the top of the bonnets needed to be low enough so as not to restrict that visibility described. Now, this design proved to be fatal to the class though. I mean, the two different engines proved to be notoriously unreliable, with camshaft failures and cylinder issues being very, very common, several more issues besides that as well, making this one of the least successful designs of diesel ever to be produced. In fact, the entire class only survived for around 3 years, having been in service around the Scottish, London and Midland regions, and by 1975 the final example had been withdrawn merely 10 years after the class was completed. All of those were scrapped, but one of them does remain under preservation. I wonder if that one's any good. So there it is then, the lovely Heljan Class 17 up close and personal for you. And you know what, this is actually alright. There is no major issue with this at all. It isn't a bargain. I thought, you know, I've paid £105 for this. That's very reasonable for a modern diesel. It's a bargain. It's not a bargain. This is a very simple model. The detailing is quite basic in quite a few areas. It was clearly quite cheap to manufacture. And like I say, it is a very light locomotive. It weighs just 277 grams, which is actually lighter than a Bachmann pannier tank, which is pretty crazy. And it's only around half the weight of a Bachmann Class 37, whereas in real life, the Class 17s were only around 30% lighter than the Class 37. And while no doubt this does have a heavy die-cast chassis, all of the bodywork is just plastic, which is a bit of a shame. So as I say, yeah, the sole bar, all plastic, all of the bodywork is plastic, even the buffers are plastic. There's not an awful lot of metalwork on board. Like I say, the detail is also very basic as well. We've got no painted cab detail, as you can see, very, very little detail inside there. The level of the floor is unrealistically high as well, which spoils the illusion. You've got all plastic grills. These are not etched or anything like that, and they do have a plasticky look to them. The grills on the top of the locomotive, again, they're just sort of moulded plastic. There's nothing behind them, no depth to them or anything like that. and all of the little handles on the sides of the various doors and such, those are all just moulded. We haven't got anything separately fitted there. So like I say, this is a very, very simple model. However, it is reflected in the price, and therefore I do think it's quite reasonable. Now, don't get me wrong, if the price goes up very much from £105, then all of this starts to become a little bit less reasonable. So I would be very, very careful about what you pay for this, because it is a simple model, there's no doubt about it. However, lack of detail, relative simplicity, that is all fine by me as long as it's reflected in the price, and it is in this case. Do I really care about little handles on the side of the locomotive? No, of course not. I'm happy to see those moulded any day of the week. As long as I'm not paying a premium price for a less than premium locomotive, I'm quite happy. So let's take a look at this then, because actually in terms of quality, it's quite nicely put together. The decoration is really great, as you can see. You've got this sort of silver trim over the tops of the bonnets here, which looks fantastic. It's really, really precise. I love that. The yellow ends, similarly. I mean, look at the join there. I think you can see it best on the top where the handrails are not. Yeah, just it's ruler straight. It's beautifully done. All of the little prints are fine as well. You've got the little warning signs and such. You've got the British Railways logo. You've got the running number on the side of the cab. You've got whatever this is. That is too small for me to see, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, the decoration is pretty much faultless. You've got the painted axle boxes, which again, look fantastic. The cab exterior, at least, is nicely painted. You've got this beautiful riveted texture around the window frames. I think that looks marvellous. The little struts that support the windows and divide up the windows, they are decorated as well. They look wonderful. The doors, again, these are simple. We don't have any separately fitted handrails or anything. Like I keep saying, it's a very simple model, but it's all nicely decorated. And so even though it is a simple model, the fantastic decoration sells the illusion that this is a more detailed model than it really is. Let's take a look at some of the separately fitted parts though, because I am seeing the separately fitted wipers on the various windows, which is great. You do have some separately fitted handrails around the ends of the loco, and those are very, very, very sturdy. I challenge anybody to break one of those off. That's great to see. The buffer beams are full of detail, and that's a little bit of an issue. This goes back to what I was saying about Heljan's design philosophy, because you've got these screw-link couplings fitted, which are dangling over the NEM pockets, which means if you want to fit standard NEM couplings, those are going to be in the way. So my question is, why are those fitted to the model and why are these left in the detail bag? Usually it's the other way around, because as I understand it, most people use the NEM tension lock couplings as opposed to the realistic screw-link couplings. So is that just a case of Heljan being out of touch with their customers, because they always do this? Every loco I've had from Heljan has been the same. Do people really use those screw-link couplings? Are more people using those than are the tension lock couplings? In my experience, almost certainly not. But I'm going to post a poll and you can let me know which of the two coupling solutions you prefer to use. But Heljan, that is so irritating, because now I've got to yank those various details off before I can couple the loco to anything. Yeah, it's silly. It's a bit silly, that. The buffers, while plastic, are also sprung though. There you go. Nice little demo there. Sprung buffers. Yes. There are separately fitted lamp irons, and some of those do look a little bit wonky, but that's really the only quality issue I would have with this. Possibly we've got real working lights on this model. I'll just wait and see, I suppose. I'll get the body off if I can, and I'll find out whether the lights do work. And you've also got the Route here 7P63, which has a sort of plastic cover over the front of it. Whether or not those are supposed to light up, I'm not sure. I guess we'll find out. And then the underframe, again, this is all plastic. It does seem a little bit plasticky, this. If this was all die-cast, the weight of the model might have been a bit better. But as you can see, there's a fair bit of moulded detail there. It's not quite as nicely moulded as the rest of the body or anything, but there's no big deal. And of course, the bogie detail is okay as well. Those are separately fitted to the actual mechanical bogie, and I think they look absolutely fine from the outside, although they are a nightmare when you decide to service the things. So in conclusion, this is quite a basic model. The level of detail matches with locos from sort of 10, 20 years ago, something like that. However, because that is more or less reflected in the price, I don't have any major complaints about this. So I'm going to investigate the mechanism, I'll get it down onto the track, and I will tell you all about it. Right. I am fuming. That has to be the most frustrating thing I've ever done in my entire life. From an access and maintenance point of view, the design of this locomotive is terrible. It's not poor, it's not slightly inadequate, it's absolutely terrible. What normally takes me 15 minutes, a quick disassembly, film some of the components, has taken me an hour. And I'm a buffer down as well, I'll tell you about that. So first things first then, I wanted to take off one of the base keeper plates, alright? Should be easy to do, it's important for maintenance and such. Is it held on by a couple of clips, or even better, a couple of screws? No. In order to access it, you've got to take off the sides of the bogie, which are made up of sort of 3 different pieces. They've got to come off. And then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 clips, annoying clips that hold the bogie on. Well, you've only got 2 hands, so you've got to try and unclip all 4 and keep them unclipped. And the pickups are there as well, so they're getting in the way and you're trying not to damage them. What's wrong with a couple of screws to hold stuff together? I just don't get this with Heljan. Anyway, the base keeper plate is off. There are the axles, no proper bearings on the axles or anything. No huge deal because it is just a cheap plastic chassis, which by the way is not held together properly in any way. It's literally just clipped together with the base keeper plate. So you can see how cheap and easy this is to manufacture and assemble, but it sure is a nightmare to access and service these things. Really, really bad. And just to prove how easy it is to put this thing back together, this is how the base keeper plate goes back on. That's all that's involved. Next up, the instructions had the audacity to say that the conversion of this locomotive to DCC operation is a simple task. That is a lie. That's not bending the truth, that is a lie. Because on the next page it reveals that the body comes off in multiple sections, and in order to get the body off you've got to disassemble the buffers. There's little plugs that hold the buffers on, tiny little pieces of plastic. Somehow you've got to get those off and not lose them, by the way, and then the buffers will come out. So you've got to do that 4 times, an almost impossible task. It's a really awkward area to access. The pieces are stuck on really hard. I had to get my pliers on them. I was pushing them off with my screwdriver. Absolute nightmare. It then says lift the body shell and you will gain access to the motor and printed circuit. Well, that's a lie as well, because I'm pulling, it's not coming off, and I can see why, because there are still more clips holding the thing on, so you can't just lift the body shell. You've got to, again, use your 8 tentacled arms and get all of those clips disengaged before the body comes off. And even then, the body is still anchored to the chassis because they've hardwired all of the lights. There's no convenient spring-loaded contacts to connect them up. No, they're hardwired, so you've got to juggle the chassis and the body at the same time as DCC fitting. A bit of sponge dropped out. Why is the loco full of sponge? I don't understand that. Don't know where it came from. There is the 3-pole motor, just a 3-pole motor inside there. Dual flywheels though, which is pretty good, so we should get some nice smooth performance from it, hopefully. And there's the 8-pin DCC socket, which again is quite outdated and could do with being updated. Reassembly was absolutely infuriating. Once you've got the body back on, it's a case of putting those buffers back into place and trying to maneuver those absolutely infinitesimal plugs back onto the buffers to hold them in place. It's a nightmare. The pliers were kept slipping. One of the plugs has come off and gone inside the loco body, and to get it back again I've got to remove all of the buffers and start again, so I'm not doing that. That's why we're 1 buffer down. I'll fix it when I come to service the thing, if we get that far. The one good thing is that the gauging is right, 14.4mm back to back on each axle, so that's alright. Why, Heljan? Why? Why were your buffers held on like that? When has that ever been done? Have you done it that way just to make it awkward to remove the body? What? It's just a couple of screws and the body should come off. That's how it's always been done. That's how the best models work. Why has it taken me an hour just to film sort of 6 shots of the insides of a locomotive? It's so frustrating. I'd love to see what goes through these people's heads when they design this stuff. Talk about impractical. I don't know. Anyway, let's have some fun. I haven't got couplings in it yet. That's going to be another barrel of laughs, isn't it? Because I'm going to have to yank off the screw-link couplings before I fit the NEMs. But I won't worry about that just now. That'll be another hour's job later on, I expect. Come on, let's give it a first test then. It's not yet been run in, so maybe this will be at its best. Maybe it won't be. We'll have to wait and see. But let's give it its first test, and after all this, it better work. It works. But that's 50% speed. Eh? Is that it? Is that it at 50% speed? Because that doesn't seem very quick. Call me Mr. Criticism. That's full speed. Hang on, what was the top speed of this locomotive in real life? Let me go and find out. 60 miles an hour, apparently, is the top speed. Yeah, I don't think that's 60 miles an hour. Is there something wrong? This is top speed, by the way. That's maxed out on the controller. And it is, you can hear that the motor's spinning up high. Wow. That's so disappointing. What on earth? There must be something wrong with that. That's 50% speed. Maybe there's a bit of sponge pushing on the mechanism because the loco's full of sponge. I don't know. Does it crawl well? Let's find out. Turning up. There we are. Oh, a bit more. Okay, so no, it's cogging. It's kicking at a reasonably high speed. Not very impressed. But maybe it will improve as it runs in. In fact, I'm hoping it will speed up by about 300%. Because this is too slow. This is not a realistic loco at all. There's got to be something wrong with that. It's turning its wheels though, so it's not like there's a friction issue or something. Yeah, I guess I'll just have to let it run in, folks, and then it will become an amazing runner, I'm sure. Okay, 50% then. This is going to be really, really underwhelming. Let's run in. Yeah, it's a snail. I'm going to have to Google whether these locos run slowly normally, because this is ridiculous. This can't be intended. I mean, having seen the design of the interior, I wouldn't be surprised if they were actually satisfied with this design. I don't know, maybe it's getting faster. Maybe it will just improve as it goes on. That seems a bit faster already, doesn't it? But there's still a long way to go. Yeah, it's just not nicely designed. That's what I would say. There's nothing wrong with the quality per se of this. It's the design work that lets this one down. I mean, you've got to laugh, haven't you? Because honestly, I was so frustrated trying to take this thing to pieces. Seriously, what's wrong with a couple of screws holding the base keeper plate on and then a couple more screws holding the body on? It's not expensive. It would still be easy to manufacture. I don't know. Anyway, I'll see you in an hour. And if the loco's still in one piece because I haven't got furious and destroyed it, then that will be a victory for Heljan, I would say. So, I'll see you soon. Let's hope there's an improvement. Okay, folks, I'm back. The bad news is that it's still farcically slow at the 50% speed setting. It is a bit faster than it was straight out of the box, but it's still too slow. The good news is when you turn it up to the higher speeds, it is now going a bit faster, watch. The bad news with that is that the sound is crazy. I mean, listen to this. This is the sound I captured from it running along. Makes me want to go in search of a bee's nest in the rafters or something. Yeah, there's something definitely not right with this. And I have investigated. I've looked it up on the various forums. There are other people with this issue. Lots of noise, slow running. So while I'm sure it isn't every example that behaves like this, I do know that mine is not the only example. So we've got that. Is the crawl any better now? Oh, there's so much to tell you about this and how naff it is. So the crawl is, let's try and do this properly. Turning it up slowly, slowly, slowly. There we go, so that's about as slow as it can go. It is reasonably smooth, and it is reasonably quiet at that speed. Oh, I was going to give it the benefit of the doubt there. It stopped. Come on. I was going to say that it's fairly consistent. Scratch that, it's not that great. So in fact, to get it to run consistently, you've got to really turn it up, like sort of this sort of thing. All right. So let's talk about couplings. You might notice that there is now a coupling fitted to the back. I had to pull out the screw link coupling in order to make space for the NEM coupling. That pained me to do. But let's talk about the couplings that came with the loco, shall we? Are you ready to see them? So here's the coupling. Okay, don't see a problem with that. Let me turn it on its side for you. You see the issue? It's crooked. And look at this, coupling hook up. Coupling hook stay up. Whatever I do, the coupling hook, well, there we go. Slam it on the ground and the coupling hook comes back down again. It is such a basic thing to get right, a coupling. I've done it in the past, right? I've created my own ones. This is a fundamental failure in the simplest aspect of a model locomotive. It's bent and the coupling hook doesn't come down as it's supposed to, unless you do that. Heljan, what's the point? Here's coupling number 2, still bent, but it's not as bad. Can you see that? Yeah, it's still crooked. Does the hook come down on this one? Do I have a coupling I can use? Nope, tolerances are still off. There you are, stays stuck in the upwards position. Let's do that again, yeah, stays stuck up. There. Well, I'm going to use them. I'm going to use the couplings provided because, you know what, I think it will be funny. And just for your entertainment, there is the coupling fitted into the locomotive. And just for the record, in case it wasn't blindingly obvious, no, of course, that coupling was not fit for purpose. It isn't going to couple to the wagon, no way. So here is the other coupling, which is still malformed, don't get me wrong, but it's a little bit straighter. As you can see, coupling this together, no, it's still not fit for purpose because the coupling hook drunkenly lolls to the left-hand side. So you've got to sort of uncouple, straighten the hook, and then they will go together correctly. However, just with a single wagon running around the track like this, as you can see, derailment straight away, just total derailment. Why? Well, because there's tat stuck all over the buffer beams, which stops the coupling from moving properly. Again, I'll have to ask Heljan, why do you do this? Every other manufacturer includes those details in a parts bag so that you can fit them if you want to. Why are they fitted onto the model when you know full well that it's going to foul up the couplings? So to fix it, I've had to do this and this. I know I wasn't very careful. The time for being careful with this model is well and truly past. Anyway, coupled up the wagon again. Finally, the thing is working correctly. So, I mean, there's at this point, there's very little positive to say. And that goes again for the pulling power. Because it is so light, it has a pulling force of 0.41 newtons, which isn't terrible. I mean, I'm sure that's fine for a loco of this size. It is, however, one of the weakest diesels in the collection. The Bachmann Class 20, for example, has about twice the pulling power. So, yeah, again, it's just really light. It's not that great a runner. Let's show you the performance again then. So, this is 50% speed, just to ram that home for you. Oh, listen to that. It's getting worse and worse and worse. So I'm guessing rubbish motors. And by the way, if I cut it out, you can see the flywheel effect coming into play. Sort of. There you go, look, I've got it there. Which suggests that there is nothing catching on the inside, which is putting strain on the mechanism or something, so it's not that. But as you can see at the higher speeds now, it is now going a little bit quicker. But it's weird because at 50 speed, it's just really not doing it. It's really painful. I suppose that is better now though, isn't it? The lights work, they're very dim, and the forward lights are not diffused at all, so you've just got a bright spot in the centre of those sort of destination boards. Doesn't light them evenly, so that's no good really. And then you've got the red tail lights, which look okay, I suppose. Right, so I've set up a train of wagons. There is, yeah, it's just a mixed train really. Open wagons, got some Warwells on there. Box vans, brake van. Let's see if it will couple up to them, and I'll do a little bit of a haulage test. Ooh. Sounds like nails on a chalkboard. Okay, coupling worked this time. No, of course not. It's a Heljan coupling, Sam. What do you expect? They don't work. That's what they do. Second time. No. How many times have we seen this with a Heljan loco, can I just say? Coupled. Hey, no, thought we had. I'm getting ready to blow. Coupled. Hey, I wasn't counting. Was that sort of 6th time lucky, something like that? The Heljan coupling still hasn't engaged properly. The coupling hook has gone the wrong way, so I'll help it. I don't think there's any chance of it actually doing it by itself at this point, so might as well step in. Okay. I've got no comment. Let's just get the review finished, shall we? Here we go. 50% speed. Well, at least that's looking a little bit quicker now. On the middle line, we have a much better loco from Bachmann. This is the Class 20. Similar sort of price, I think, wasn't it? No, maybe this one was a bit cheaper. But it's much better. It's more nicely detailed, it's competently designed, the couplings work. The motor's a noisy one, but it performs as it should. Yeah, I wouldn't bother buying Heljan diesels now after I've seen that. I've heard that some of them are good, and I've seen one or two good ones. But they're not like Bachmann, are they? Nope, not by a long chalk. And then on the inside line, just to show that Heljan can make locos that sort of work, I've got this one. Is this the Class 26? Now this, I will admit, is a good runner from Heljan. I don't have many. This is one of them that is actually a really good runner. It's quite poor quality again. In fact, look, I bet I can pull this buffer off if I want to. Look at that. It's like a wobbly tooth. No, let's not pull it off then. Let's push that back on. Never mind. Come on, let's get rid of it. Off we go. I don't know. Right, let's watch it go around the layout then. Let's hope the performance is okay. It's come back around now, so we know it managed. Alright, let's wait and see. Okay, here it comes. So it seems as though the performance on curves and on gradients and such is okay. Yeah, don't have any complaints with that. It's worth, I don't normally point that out, but we're running low on the positives with this loco, so I will include it. There you go, it's done that quite well. Yeah, it's just such a shame about this one because it's a decent looking locomotive at quite a good price. It's just spoilt by a huge number of poor design decisions. And it's not just one or two either. I've spent the whole video pointing out little issues with it, little poor design choices, things that could have been done better. I just don't understand how so many faults and problems can crop up with one locomotive from that one company. So again, Heljan, I say this directly to you. In the past, I've invited you to get in touch and give me some comment or explanation as to how and why this keeps happening. I didn't hear anything from you. You failed to get in touch. So I invite you again, please do get in touch if you have any word of explanation as to why it should be that so many of your models seem to be fraught with these poor design choices and the poor quality of manufacturing. How does it happen that the couplings on 90% of the Heljan locos I've looked at are not functional and not fit for purpose? How does it happen? I don't understand it. Please do get in touch, Heljan, if there's a good explanation, because I'm coming up blank. I really can't imagine why it should be. Did you see that? It's slowed right down suddenly. There is something wrong with that motor. Look at that. That was going at a decent speed and it's just suddenly bottomed. Strange. Look at that. Well, I'll warn you, it's not going to be pretty, but the time has come to do some ratings for the Heljan Class 17. So the level of detail, I mean, like I say, it is quite a basic model. There are some things to celebrate where the detail is concerned. I mean, the finish, the decoration, all of that is faultless. I cannot fault that at all. However, the cab detailing is very, very basic. You've got an incredibly unrealistic cab. A lot of the detailing is quite basic. Lots of detail is just moulded as opposed to separately fitted. And there's a lot of plastic on board as well. Plastic body, plastic buffers, plastic. It's okay, but I wouldn't want to be paying much more than I did for that level of detail. Performance, I think this is generous. If anything, I've given it 3 stars. It is a smooth runner, I must say. It's a reasonably smooth runner. However, the speed is totally wrong. Whether or not that's because of a fault, I'm not entirely sure, but there's nothing I can do about that. The couplings are completely inadequate. They're just malformed. They don't work properly. There's buffer beam detail which prevents them from working anyway, even if they were formed properly. And the crawl isn't anything to shout about, and it's also very noisy as well. The pulling power doesn't look too bad. 25 coaches, 0.41 newtons. It's probably adequate, but it's also worth saying that this is one of the weakest diesels I own. The Bachmann Class 20, for instance, which is a similar size, had more than twice that pulling power. So it's not that powerful because, of course, it's so plasticky and so light. The mechanism I've had to give 2 star. Again, if anything, this is quite generous. 3-pole motor. I would rather have seen a 5-pole motor. That way we might have seen some decent performance. And in fact, the claim in the paperwork that the 3-pole motor will meet most modelers' demands, I think is inaccurate, because I don't see that motor meeting any modelers' demands, because it's noisy, super slow, and in my experience so far, not very reliable. You've got no bearings on the axles. Each bogie is made of cheap plastic, which is just sort of held together by clips. I'm just not a fan of that. It's got an outdated DCC socket. It's really poor to access the mechanism. Really, really frustrating. Not an awful lot to celebrate on the mechanism. I suppose the flywheels are quite good. Yeah, I think that's it. Quality, I've also have to give it 2-star. First of all, because of the plastic construction, a little bit more weight, a little bit more metal would have made this more worth the money, and of course better quality. The design is poor as well. I'm going to knock off a mark under quality for just the horrible design. As I've already mentioned, yeah, it's not very good. And of course the couplings as well. The quality of the couplings is so poor that they're just sort of bent and crooked, don't work properly, the coupling hooks don't fall down. It's basic stuff, they haven't even got the basics right. Okay, value for money then. RRP £139.95. I bought mine from the model centre for I think £105. I can't find the invoice that says exactly, but I think it was around there. Now don't get me wrong, I think this is really, really generous, to be honest with you. I have given it 4-star because, I mean, there's quite a lot of good in this model. It's a shame that it wasn't executed better, but yeah, on its own, the value doesn't seem too bad. Although, to be clear, I'm not recommending picking up one of these, at least not for much less than £100. Overall then, that is 5.8 out of 10. Let's put that into the logbook. Yep, of course it's bottom, below the Bachmann Thomas, because it's not fit for purpose. I think this is the first locomotive I've reviewed this year that was genuinely not fit for purpose on multiple levels. Those couplings alone would have been enough to stop this loco being fit for purpose, but there was a whole multitude of other things I've just described as well. Oh, Heljan, what a mess. Okay, so the speed is definitely better now. It's done, well, it's well over an hour's running now. And yes, the speed is a bit more like what I would expect. I'm still not convinced by it though, because like I say, I spotted it suddenly slow down like that, which just screams motor trouble, doesn't it? So I'm guessing I'll just have to keep this under observation and see how it goes. And if anything changes, I guess I can post an update. But I think I can give a tentative thumbs up on the performance now. The crawl's, you know, still not very good. It's not the greatest performer in the world, but I would say the actual running now has gone from inadequate to adequate. And it's worth pointing that out because, again, there are not very many positives with this. So the performance is all right now. It's still very noisy, but at least it's smooth and halfway constant. So yeah, with a little bit of running in, if you persevere, there does seem to be an improvement, I will say that. It's still a far cry from what it would need to be in order for me to recommend this to you with a clear conscience. So if you find one of these really, really cheap, then I guess go for it. But seriously, be very, very careful. Don't buy one of these expecting to get a quality model. Don't buy one of these expecting to get a model that you can just put on the track and expect to work without having to modify the couplings or possibly even provide your own more functional couplings, remove details. Don't expect to just pop the body off and fit a DCC decoder, because it's an hour's job and you've got to have some serious dexterity to dismantle those buffers and reassemble them again without issue. No, there are better models out there that you can buy. Almost any model out there is going to be better than this. And it's a real shame because, like I said at the start, I'm a fan of the Class. And I can't help liking this model because it looks so, so great. But every time I look at it and think, oh, that's going to be a good model to run, I know that I will just then remember the performance and the mechanism, all the troubles I've had. And I'll just think, no, it's not really that great after all. So it's a great pity. I'm sorry not to be more positive. I'll try and pick a really great loco next so that I can be more positive, because I do prefer to be nice in my reviews as opposed to this slightly obnoxious throwing my toys out of my pram person. But you know what, you got to be honest, and I've tried to find the positive and I have failed to find the positive. But thank you for watching, thank you for your company. I hope you have a good day, and I will see you very, very soon for some more videos. Alright, cheers folks, take care.